Hello, I'm Tu Kim Lam. Welcome to the Medical News Show from Washington, D.C. In this edition of the Medical News, we will talk about Alzheimer's disease. On May 14, 2012, the Office of the President Obama announced to the public on the $16 million budget plan that is used for research in finding medicines to cure the Alzheimer's disease. According to the Alzheimer's Association, more than 5 million people in the U.S. are living with Alzheimer's. And by the year 2050, the estimated number of the Americans with Alzheimer's will be 16 million people. Here with us today is Dr. Tran, who is currently practicing internal medicine in Falls Church, Virginia. He will share with us the information on the Alzheimer's disease. Welcome to the Medical News Show, Dr. Tran.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our shows. And hello, Mrs. Lam.
Hello, Dr. Tran. Today we're going to talk about the Alzheimer's disease, which has damaged our memories. Can you explain to our audience what is Alzheimer's disease?
Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of the memory loss. We call people with memory loss with dementia, but Alzheimer's usually start early at 40 years old. And at the end of 50 years old, usually they're losing completely memory. This is the disease not just affecting the early age, but also affecting the people over 60 years old. And about 10% of the people past 60 years old, they also carry the gene to develop Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is a form of memory loss. This is one of the causes of the memory loss of the elderly people as well.
Dr. Tran, you just said the difference between Alzheimer's disease and the aging disease. Can you explain the differences?
The differences between the disease related to the old age, usually we call senile dementia. Senile means old age, dementia means losing of the memory. The difference between Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's start early at age 40. The senile dementia usually happen after 60 years old. And then senile dementia usually have the reversible cause. That means sometimes because they have low on B12 or low on folic acid, or they drinking a lot of alcohol, they may losing their memory. And even sometimes people have hypothyroidism, when they low the hormone, the thyroid. Sometimes they losing their memory. Therefore, when we define these group of people, we need to know whether they have the reversible cause or not. So a little bit different because Alzheimer's is really no treatment for now, and we know for sure that relates to the gene.
Dr. Tran, would you explain or describe the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease person have?
Most people really have disease, they have the symptom that losing memory. The only thing is very important, we need to know that they're losing memory early in daily life. And it's have difficult for them to planning or solving the problem during daily activities. They have difficulties completing the usual tasks they usually do at home or at work. Or they may be sometimes very confused about time and place. They have trouble understanding images, or sometimes they couldn't really know where they are, and difficulty finding words in a normal conversation with other people, or when they're writing, or misplaced thing. Very important, when they misplace something, they couldn't figure out, or they couldn't remember where they misplaced something. And finally, when they really in advanced stage, they're changing in mood and personality because they really feel like they're losing almost everything, especially the memory.
Dr. Tran, could you tell us what caused this Alzheimer's disease?
The cause of the disease right now, most of the scientists agree that only two substances that present in the brain are causing disease. The first one called amyloid plaques that we'll explain later. The tau protein. Tau protein is the key component of the transmission of the nerve. Now, I just want to introduce you the pictures of the brain. The brain has the structures, and with different locations, the brain relates to different memory. And one of the area that really focus for memory called hippocampus, that store on the memory and interact with the other function of the brain to execute the other action of that person. And the frontal area relate to the thinking, space and calculation and imagine. So every aspect of the brain will connect it to really like a huge computer to squeeze into one brain and function as fast as the computer to communicate and to execute on the decision making of the human being. Now, if you see on the brain, you can see the cell is one cell, look like a star, and then we have the axon to connect to the other cell. At the end of the axon, you get the dendrite, and look like the roots of the tree to connect with the other cell. But really, they're not really direct contact. But in between, they have the space. Then in between the space there, you can see the release of the chemical. So the transmission, electrical transmission, but at the end, they rely on the chemical transmission to transmit information from one cell to another one. Another picture, you can see it, the tube they call tau protein that helping with the transmission of the nerve from one place to another one. And tau protein, when it's broken down, disrupt completely the transmission of one nerve to another one. And one more picture is at the end of the nerve, you can see the tiny little granules that relate to the transmission of the acetylcholine at the end of the nerve. Now, I just want to introduce to you a short movie to really describe the whole pictures, the connection, the stimulation, the transmission of the nerve, and the underlying cause of the disease. Now, you can observe this.
The human brain is a remarkable organ. Complex chemical and electrical processes take place within our brains that let us speak, move, see, remember, feel emotions, and make decisions. Inside a normal, healthy brain, billions of cells called neurons constantly communicate with one another. They receive messages from each other as electrical charges travel down the axon to the end of the neuron. The electrical charges release chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. The transmitters move across microscopic gaps or synapses between neurons. They bind to receptor sites on the dendrites of the next neuron. This cellular circuitry enables communication within the brain. Healthy neurotransmission is important for the brain to function well. Alzheimer's disease disrupts this intricate interplay. By compromising the ability of neurons to communicate with one another, the disease over time destroys memory and thinking skills. Scientific research has revealed some of the brain changes that take place in Alzheimer's disease. Abnormal structures called beta amyloid plaques and neurofibrillary tangles are classic biological hallmarks of the disease. Plaques form when specific proteins in the neuron's cell membrane are processed differently. Normally, an enzyme called alpha secretase snips amyloid precursor protein, or APP, releasing a fragment. A second enzyme, gamma secretase, also snips APP in another place. These released fragments are thought to benefit neurons. In Alzheimer's disease, the first cut is made most often by another enzyme, beta secretase. That, combined with the cut made by gamma secretase, results in the release of short fragments of APP called beta amyloid. When these fragments clump together, they become toxic and interfere with the function of neurons. As more fragments are added, these oligomers increase in size and become insoluble, eventually forming beta amyloid plaques. Neurofibrillary tangles are made when a protein called tau is modified. In normal brain cells, tau stabilizes structures critical to the cell's internal transport system. Nutrients and other cellular cargo are carried up and down the structures called microtubules to all parts of the neuron. In Alzheimer's disease, abnormal tau separates from the microtubules, causing them to fall apart. Strands of this tau combine to form tangles inside the neuron, disabling the transport system and destroying the cell. Neurons in certain brain regions disconnect from each other and eventually die, causing memory loss. As these processes continue, the brain shrinks, and loses function. We now know a great deal about changes that take place in the brain with Alzheimer's disease, but there is still much to learn. What other changes are taking place in the aging brain and its cells? And what influence do other diseases, genetics, and lifestyle factors have on the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease?
Dr. Tran, what are the risk factors that might lead to Alzheimer's disease?
The risk factors is most people thinking is when you get old, get aging, you're losing memory. So this is one of the risk factors, just confirmed. But the gene is very important in Alzheimer's disease because gene is related to, right now, we identify different kinds of gene that relate to Alzheimer. Alzheimer happen early age, and also late onset Alzheimer also relate to gene. But fortunately, not every elderly people develop Alzheimer. Only about 10% will have the gene related to Alzheimer. So the C9 dementia, the memory loss in elderly people, usually have another causes, mostly in different things. The head trauma, people replace football, boxing, soccer with repeat trauma in the head, may have increased risk of having Alzheimer. And lastly, any disease of the heart and may also affect the brain because the heart is the pumping to provide oxygen for the brain cell to use.
Dr. Tran, what kind of diagnosis that you make of the Alzheimer's disease?
The diagnosis is based on the symptom. Mostly the patient themselves, they able to recognize and they losing memory because they couldn't remember things. The physician usually rely on the exam and the blood test. What are you looking for? The blood test is to identify the reversible cause or the treatable cause of the disease. And most of the elderly people, they have some treatable causes, like they low in vitamin B12, they low in folic acid, they low in niacin, or they low in hormone called thyroid, or they try to identify different kind of infectious disease like virus, AIDS disease, or anything related to that we can reverse it, so have to get a treatment. Now, for the testing, they commonly use right now the clock test because we just ask people to draw the clock. If you see on the pictures, you can see the clock is like 11:10, and ask the patient to draw that picture. You can see different pictures people can draw in different way, but that relate to the degree of the sickness of Alzheimer's disease. And lastly, because imaging, the technology right now with the CAT scan, MRI, PET scan, we're able to identify the brain, but not really to know for sure by the X-ray that we can identify Alzheimer, because we can see the brain gets smaller, they call atrophy of the brain. And then if it's so difficult to identify, we have to rely on the specialists, neurologists, the psychologists to testing, and the psychiatrists to identify the depression or treat the other brain disease with different medication. And if we couldn't find the exact cause, or by request of the family, sometimes the patient will be referred to get a brain biopsy.
Now, Dr. Tran, when is the person is already diagnosed with the disease and found out that they have the disease, so what are the next steps they should do?
Well, the next step is usually they provide some kind of treatment for them. And right now with the current medication, we rely more on the medication to increase the release of the chemical transmitter at the end of the nerve. They call acetylcholine. And the only three medication right now currently use the Aricept, the rivastatin Exelon, and galantamine also to promote the release of the chemical. But unfortunately, this medication is helping to delay the progressive disease only. It's no cure, and really the effectiveness is small. The other medication, Namenda, have to regulate the glutamate. The glutamate is binding to the channel, play a role in the memory and also in cognitive function. And we increase the binding to glutamate, hopefully to help the memory as well. But the effectiveness is also limited so far. So right now, really, with the new discovery, we have the one medication called the crenezumab. It's very special because it targets the amyloid that we talked about, the key protein that causing problem in the brain. Right now we have the medication that really able to reduce the formation of amyloid based on information done in different phases of the study on animals and mice, and now applied to human beings. And Genentech pharmaceutical company is the one really studied this one, and recently what is approved by FDA to study on a group of people, about 300 people in Colombia, and they belong to the huge area with 5,000 people, and 1/3 of these people live in that area have the gene related to Alzheimer. And we have including also 23 Americans in that study because they fit in with the pictures of Alzheimer. And hopefully they will start the study program next year, 2013, and hopefully they complete the study in 2025. And at that point in time, we may know whether this medication may help to really able to prevent or able to treat the disease that really so far incurable.
Dr. Tran, before we go, would you give us some advice how to prevent the Alzheimer's disease?
Right now we don't have really the clear treatment pictures for us, so I think it's very important to how to prevent that. And really we have a couple of things that we need to remember. First, we have to keep active, keep the brain function, and have some kind of challenging activity for the brain, like try to learn something new, try to learn new languages, try to write down memoir or whatever, and try to use the brain to keep it active. Secondly, regular exercise. Exercise is well documented. About 50% of people who exercise really have very low incidence of Alzheimer's because exercise brings more oxygen to the brain to use and protect the brain. Try to avoid anything that may damage the brain, like alcohol, cigarettes, and also the next step is you need to get a good sleep. Avoid the sleeping pill. Try to have the healthy habit of having good sleep at night so we can protect the brain cell, give the brain cell time to recovering from working all day. Now, active social life was documented by the scientists that helping people dealing with the memory is very effective in that way. And finally, healthy diet. The studies show the Mediterranean diet, the people in Middle East, usually they follow their diet with nuts, fruits, fresh olive. They avoid certain kind of fried stuff. Most people in Mediterranean, they have really low incidence of Alzheimer. So this is one of the diet highly recommend right now. I think that's all we think we need to do in order either to delay or to prevent the Alzheimer when we get old.
Thank you, Dr. Tran. That is all the time we have for our medical news show today. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for watching our shows today. And again, thank you, Ms. La.
Thank you, sir. That was Dr. Sang Tran, who just shared with us the information on the Alzheimer's disease. We hope that the information provided by Dr. Sang Tran today has shed more light on Alzheimer's. That is all the time we have for the medical news show today. If you have any additional question in the topic above, please contact your family physician. Thanks for watching. I am Tu Kim Lam. We'll see you next time on the Medical News Show.